ourselves together and rip ourselves apart. So many lies and ties to sever, we don't know where to start. What if we could just talk it over? If only we could somehow find a way. Maybe we could just start all over. If only we weren't breaking up today. If only we weren't breaking up today.
The podcast where
if only we weren't breaking up today.
On this episode, however, I am joined by Dave of One Band 5 Songs. So he is going to discuss his favorite albums from the band All. How's it going, Dave?
Good. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for joining. So, as I said, we are going to be talking about the band All.
One won't be real. It has to be time to leave it all behind. What a perfect time for me to make you mine. I know I can make everything just perfect. 'Cause I'm the only boy who can make you see that you're the only girl in the world for me.
All right. That was Just Perfect by All.
That is a damn near perfect song too.
It is. It is a really good one. I had a hard time clipping that one because I was like, man, what parts of that song do I want in here? But so I went with that. Anyway, let's get into just a little bit of history about the band first. The band was formed in 1987 by the members of Descendants, who we just did an episode on. This band was formed when Milo Ackerman chose to leave the music business to pursue a PhD in biochemistry. And they chose the name of the band from the title of the last Descendants album, which was released in 1987. Based on what I have read, the concept of All was invented by drummer Bill Stevenson based on his goal of total achievement.
Yeah, it was Bill and his best friend Pat.
Very good.
Yeah, they came up with it while they were fishing. Subsequently, Pat died while fishing because his boat was too filled with fish and it sank.
Coming up with the idea while fishing does not surprise me.
No, I mean that is this band. No matter what name you put on it, it's about fishing, food, and girls.
And coffee. Yeah. So because they were without a singer, they were joined. This band was joined on vocals by Dag Nasty singer Dave Smalley. Of course, Dave Smalley was not the only singer for this band. Over the course of their career, they have had 3 singers. After Dave Smalley was Scott Reynolds, and after Scott Reynolds was Chad Price. Now, not only have they rotated singers, they have rotated locations. They started out in Los Angeles, and they have relocated, I believe, at least twice.
They relocated.
Moved to Brookfield, Missouri, and then to Fort Collins, Colorado.
Yeah. So Bill Stevenson's dad owned property in Brookfield, and they figured it was a good central location since they were on the road most of the time. That is where it was. While in Missouri, that's where they met Chad Price. And nice little side note: Drag the River, Chad Price's other band, his band with John Snodgrass, has a song called Brookfield that's about Brookfield, Missouri.
Nice. I've never been to Brookfield, Missouri. In fact, I don't even think I know where it's at. I've been through Missouri a number of times.
I don't know where it is either, and I'm from Springfield, Missouri originally. Granted, I haven't been back there since like 1993.
Yeah, I mean, I drive through that state fairly often whenever I'm going up to either Michigan or Chicago or something like that. So based on the map, it appears that it is in kind of north central Missouri.
Okay.
So yeah, that would make sense why I have never been through it, because I don't generally drive through that part of Missouri.
But yeah, part of the move was a lot of it was just financial, and the reason they moved to Fort Collins is that Los Angeles was too big, Brookfield was too small, and Fort Collins was just right. It was like what's that stupid fairy tale with the porridge and the bears?
Goldilocks?
Yes, it's like there were Goldilocks in that mess.
Oh, I got you.
You haven't find the one that's just right.
So Fort Collins, I have been to several times, in fact. I was actually born in Aurora, Colorado, which is an hour-ish from Fort Collins. But the band, to date, they have released 9 studio albums, 2 live albums, 1 compilation album, and 1 EP.
Yes, and one of those live records sounds horrible because at the time when it was recorded, Scott Reynolds, who was the singer, was horrifically sick.
Oh no! Was that Hallwrecker? No,
it's Trailblazer. Hallwrecker is the second Descendants live album.
Oh, that's right. I'm getting my Descendants and all mixed up. Shit.
Which is very easy to do if you are someone who has immersed yourself in both bands' discographies.
Yeah.
Speaking of, you mentioned, and you played the clip of Just Perfect earlier. That song was written before Milo left the band. They used to do a newsletter that they would send out to their fans, and in the one that was announcing, hey, here's the All record. We're going on the Fine All tour. Milo's leaving the band. We have this new song called Just Perfect. Dave Smalley's going to come in and we're going to continue as All. They just laid the whole thing out.
Yeah. That didn't surprise me. It does kind of sound like a Descendants album. Getting into a little personal background of the band. So, when I first heard about the band, I wasn't at the time. I really wasn't a huge Descendants fan. I knew of them enough to where I knew about them and knew their material. But I was I had picked up just some random guitar magazine. I want to say it was Guitar World, but it was from the late 80s. Clearly. But I can't find a copy of that anywhere. I actually tried to find it so that I could tell you what issue it was specifically, but just some random, it was Guitar World. I'm pretty sure it was Guitar World. And there was a short column in there about Stephen Egerton. And I'm, flipping through the magazine. I'm like, hey, that's the guy from Descendants. What's this new thing he's got going on? Because I didn't know about at all. And I started, I found a couple of recordings and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is good. This is good stuff. Other than that, the first time I saw the band play was in the early aughts. And it was at the Green Door, which is now called 89th Street. And I remember that show very vividly because that was the first time I'd actually met Stephen Egerton. And from then on, we just kind of kept in touch.
That was a great show. I was there with you. That also had the Armstrong was one of the opening acts.
That's right.
Yeah. And so Armstrong was a band that formed out of Hagfish.
Mm-hmm.
And Hagfish had the Blair brothers on guitar and bass. And Zach Blair is now the guitar player in Rise Against. And after the show, you and I ran into him outside, and he just sat there and BS'd with us for like 30 minutes to an hour.
I remember that. I couldn't remember if that was Zach or the other one.
No, and he was an absolute sweetheart.
He was awesome.
Just so nice. And that was such a fun conversation. And yeah, that was a fun show.
I remember when I heard that he was the new guitar player for Rise Against, I was like, oh man, good for him, man. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. And he's fit in with them like a glove. Because not to talk too much about Rise Against, but they're a band that definitely incorporates lots of different styles into their music. And you would never think, listening to just say a random Hagfish record, that their guitar player is actually a shredder. And that dude can play. He was in Guar for a while, for Pete's sake. So yeah, super nice guy. If you are listening to this, if you like the Descendants, if you like all, go listen to Hagfish.
Definitely.
It's excellent stuff.
I was just listening to some Hagfish earlier today.
Very nice. Very nice. So, I guess my history with the band, I had heard the song "She's My Ex," but I didn't realize who it was. There was a radio show when I lived in Florida, out of one of the what are they called, public radio stations in Tampa, that had an alternative show on the weeknights called the Underground Circus. Great fucking name, by the way. Excellent name. And one of their shows, the Wednesday show, was called Chuck Wagon, and it focused on quote unquote heavier or more underground artists than the other shows would. And I had a cassette of one of the episodes, and there was a 3-song bit where it was No Control from Bad Religion, I Don't Want to Grow Up from the Descendants, and then She's My Ex. So it didn't click until later on that I'd known She's My Ex from that. But when I was a freshman in college at the University of Oklahoma in 1993, I kept seeing flyers around campus when you used to put flyers up on campus and stuff. That's a lost art form. But for this band, and for this band All, and they were going to be playing at this place called Rome, which sadly I never got to go to.
Oh, I love that venue.
I've heard nothing but great things.
But the first time I went to Rome 90, I saw a flock of seagulls.
Nice. But I kept seeing this flyer. I'm like, who the hell is this? And then there was a guy in a class that who was into punk rock that I was in, and we were talking one day, and he asked if I was going to the All show, and I was like, I'm not sure who that is. He was like, oh, it's the Descendants. I was like, really? I was going to ask you whatever happened to them, as I found the Descendants through Pump Up the Volume, the movie, and then got the Liveage, their live album, which, if I'm being completely honest, I think overall is my favorite record from their entire discography. But that's a whole other story. So I then, as soon as I found that out, I went to the store and I picked up their current album that was out, which was Breaking Things. Immediately fell in love and have been a gigantic fan ever since. So 30 plus years at this point, I've been a fan of this band, and I would, pick up their albums over time as money would allow. And, kids don't know how easy they have it these days. You just throw on the Spotify or the YouTubes or whatever, and boom, it's all right there. Now, we had to go spend our hard-earned money, and sometimes we'd get a piece of plastic, and there was one great song in there, and everything else sucked, and you're like, no, I'm going to suffer. I'm going to make myself love this because I spent $17 on it, by God. I don't miss that. But so the first time I ever saw them I want to say it was in 1995, and it was on the Pummel Tour, and they were playing in Oklahoma City in a place called Bricktown Live, which was in a part of downtown Oklahoma City called Bricktown. That actual building doesn't exist anymore. A couple years later, there was
It's a canal now.
Yeah, exactly. So it was the whole section of downtown was completely just redone very well. It's much nicer. The opening bands were the Lemons, and I can't remember the other one. I do remember Carl Alvarez got up and sang a song with the Lemons, and going into the show, I didn't know what to expect. I was not expecting them to play anything from the Descendants catalog. And the third song they played was I Don't Want to Grow Up. And I lost my mind because at that point, the Descendants weren't getting back together. We were never going to see these songs. So, and I think even at that point, the band didn't think they would ever be the Descendants again. So that was the first time. The second time was the show you mentioned. And I've seen them 1.5 other times. So the half time is the Stephen Egerton's record release show that he did when he put out his album. And basically it was 3/4 of the band was there. Okay, well, more like 2 of the singers and everyone except Carl Alvarez, the bass player, was there. So I kind of consider that the half show. And then we went to see them a weekend in Tulsa.
I remember that show very well.
Yes, yeah. A big event happened there. He got married on stage.
I got married on stage at that show.
It was very cool. Very, very cool. So that's my ridiculously long story.
Well, no, tell us about the show in Tulsa.
So that was great. So it was the last show on a Descendants tour, and Stefan lives in Tulsa. So on Saturday night, the Descendants play Kane's Ballroom, and it was Hagfish reunited for that show, a band called Radkey, which they were very tight, and then this band Ultimate Fake.
I just saw them again a couple of weeks ago at Norman Music Festival.
Yeah, that seems awful random that they were in Norman Music Festival.
I know. So weird.
Ultimate Fate Book is a band that Stefan really, really loves, so they reunited. They were fine. Hagfish was great, I thought. Okay, actually, the singer, bless his heart, he was trying really hard, but you could tell he was out of practice. The rest of the band was smoking, and the Descendants were really good. This would have been the second time I saw the Descendants. The first time was also with you, Steve, and that was at Riot Fest in Dallas. But then the next night, oh, and by the way, there were about 2,000 people at this show. The next night, there was a show in a much smaller venue, and I actually have the name of it. It is IDL Ballroom, and it was all Drag the River, The Last, Scott Reynolds doing a solo set, and Slaughter. And Slaughter is Stefan's instrumental band. There were about 250 people at that show. But I will say, and this is something that Steve and I have discussed ad nauseum over the years. I'm a much bigger All fan, the Descendants fan. And I thought the show in the smaller venue was just leaps and bounds better than the one at Kane's Ballroom. There was nothing wrong with the Kane's Ballroom show. It was great. Even Milo jumped up on stage, they did a really quick Descendants set of a bunch of really more obscure songs. I even thought that performance was better than the night before. But then Chad Price gets on stage and he's like, it's almost like he went, hold my beer. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make every last one of you MFers out here look bad. Watch this. And he just was on fire that whole show. I loved that show so much. That was one of those concerts. It's like a religious experience.
That was a good show. The more intimate, like getting to see the Descendants twice in one weekend was pretty freaking amazing.
That was, especially because I don't think anyone knew that was going to happen. I mean, obviously Milo was still in town because when The Last was playing, he was like right up in front. And that was, I've met everyone in the band except for Milo and Dave Smalley, though I know Dave Smalley via Facebook for whatever that's worth. But I saw Milo walking around. I was like, I'm not going to bother this guy. I'm just going to leave him alone. But yeah, those were super fun shows.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool weekend, and in Tulsa. That was actually my wife's birthday weekend.
That was, and we dragged poor Mandy to a show of a band that she's not even a super fan of.
Yeah,
twice.
Yeah.
She was great, but y'all were so awesome to me that whole weekend. I like couldn't afford to go, and
it was a lot of fun having you with us.
It was. So I still to this day I greatly appreciate it. I have great memories of that weekend.
Yeah, it was a good weekend. Yeah, really good memories of that Stephen Egerton show that you brought up, of course. But that was like we're recording this on May 16th. That show was on May 15th. And so that was like me and my wife's 14th wedding anniversary.
It hurts my mind to think that 2010 was that long ago.
Yeah.
It just feels.
But that was wedding anniversary part 1.
Yeah, because it wasn't legal.
It turns out that the minister that Stephen Egerton brought to the show so that we could get up on stage and get married was actually not legal in Oklahoma to perform weddings. Now we still consider it valid for whatever it's worth. But then we had a quote unquote real wedding in October. But yeah, we still count that as a wedding anniversary.
Nice.
Such great memories. So let's get into some ranking. So we're going to start, if you've never listened to the show before, we start with, we do 5 albums, starting with number 5 and working our way down to the number 1 album. And as I said, now usually on the show, I will do my rankings, but for this episode, Dave is actually going to do his rankings. And actually, before we get into the ranking, I just realized that we forgot to do something. Tell everybody about your podcast, One Band, 5 Songs.
Oh, yeah. So it is a blatant ripoff of Bandsplain, and it's a show where I talk about an artist, and I do it using 5 of their songs as talking points, essentially. The spiel I use is the show where we take a look at the career of one musical artist through the lens of 5 of their classic songs. And it's a nice way. What I like about doing it that way is it forces you to focus. And I say that as someone who on a pretty regular basis plays at least 1 or 2 extra songs on the shows. I did that in the first episode, for Pete's sake. I'm pretty sure on the All episode, I played 6 songs. In my defense, I did 2 songs from each singer. So there is often method to my madness. But yeah, that's the show. The show's been around for about 3 years and have about almost 110 episodes.
And it used to be Spotify only, but now it's
correct. It is. It should be on almost every major podcasting platform now. Yeah, I was using a feature that the Spotify for Podcasters platform offered, and they have done away with that feature. So I had to decide whether or not I was going to continue the show or not. And so I had a plan if I wasn't going to continue, and in that plan, I was going to record at least a couple of episodes as if the way I would do it going forward. And the nice thing about that is it opened it up. I could do bands whose music is not on Spotify. And I ended up having so much fun doing that, I've decided, screw it, I'm just going to keep doing the show.
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad you decided to do it. So I'm going to put a link to the show in the show description here. Do you have like a do-it-all link that we can use? Or?
Yes, I do. A link tree. I will send that to you.
Okay. Cool. So I'll just put the link tree on there, and I'm assuming that'll have the link to all of the various audio platforms they can find you at.
It does. And if you can't get enough of listening to my dumbass, it has even more. It has a link to my newly launched Patreon, which I feel kind of obnoxious doing it at all. But so I do have bonus audio and writing, Jesus, words. So my plan is right now, I'm going to do at least 2 bonus things a month. I would love to say I'm going to do it weekly, but I also realize that is not going to happen.
That is a little much.
It is. But I can justify still taking people's money because it's only $1 a month. So it's if you're interested, I'd love to have you sign up. It's I've done so. Even when I first launched it, I had, I think, 3 things in there already. I've got a record review of the Blackburn's new album. I have an interview with our good buddy Justin Hensley from Punk Lotto Pod. Mm-hmm. I just recently uploaded my first discography star ratings, where I go through an artist's discography and I rate them using the 5-star scale made popular by one Mr. Dave Meltzer, pro wrestling journalist and historian. And I have yet to break the star rating because I haven't recorded in the Tokyo Dome.
All right. So I will have a link to that link tree, and that'll take you to all the audio platforms and also to the Patreon if you are interested in signing up for that. And I think you should, because it's great. But let's go ahead and jump into some rankings, because that's what we're here for. So as I said, we're going to start with the number 5. And I don't know what your ranking is. I think you sent it to me earlier today, but I just ignored it because I was like, this was supposed to be a surprise. So let's jump in with number 5.
All right. So my number 4 and 5 could change depending on my mood. But as of the time I sent you this list originally, my number 5 was Mass Nerder from 1998.
Okay. Mass Nerder. So as you said, that was 1998. It was released in May of 1998 by Epitaph Records. It was recorded in December 1997 and January 1998 at the Blasting Room in Fort Collins, Colorado. And it was produced by Bill Stevenson, Stephen Egerton, and Jason Livermore there at the Blasting Room. Interestingly, this song, or rather this album, I can't remember if it was 1 or 2, had some backing vocals on it by Milo.
Yes, well, Breaking Things had backing vocals from Milo.
It did.
And Allroy Says has Milo backing vocals. So he's shown up a few times over the years to throw in backing vocals. But so this album is very much tied with the Descendants' comeback album, Everything Sucks.
Yeah. Because
originally, when they were putting this together, it was going to be Everything Sucks and Mass Nerder. If you take out the Milo songs and you put the 2 records together, is basically what Everything Sucks would have been had Milo not come back. And there's actually demo recordings out there of that. There's a really good version of the song Silence from Mass Nerder that Milo and Chad do as a duet. And it's fantastic. And their voices go so perfectly together. Like Everything Sucks is not one of my favorite Descendants records, but one of the absolute best things on it are Chad's backing vocals and the way that whenever Chad and Milo get together, they really up each other's game. And it just, they work so perfectly together. It's not even funny.
Yeah. So this was their 7th studio album. And the clip we're going to play from that song is the 10th song on the album. There were 16 songs, and the 10th one was this song called Refrain.
laid out the story, but I should have known the story would go all wrong if the world would sing along. I think that you know when it's time for you to go, I'll stand and refrain. Never finish the end. We were at the beginning when I began. The story was getting good when I heard your voice so clear say, so long, my friend. I think that you know when it's time for you to go, I'll stand and refrain.
Such a great song.
It is. That's a Chad song.
It is. That is actually one of my favorite All songs. Not my absolute favorite, because that one goes to another song that I can guarantee we're going to be talking about here in a little bit. But yeah, Refrain is probably one of my favorite songs. Probably, if not top 5 songs of theirs, at least top 10.
Man, I've never sat down to try to do a ranking of their songs.
Yeah,
that would be hard.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That would be, yeah.
Yeah, this Mass Murder was a really good album. And it had some really good tunes. Some of my favorite songs from that album are Thank the World, Until I Say So, Honey Peeps, and Until Then.
Honey Peeps is a really dumb song, but
it is. It's very dumb, but it's just fun to listen to.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what I'd have to look and see what songs on here are my favorites. Like off the top of my head, because I don't have it pulled up, I would say that Refrain is one, Silence is one, and I've now got it pulled up. So
Vida Blue, that's another really good one.
Vida Blue is a good one. Romantic Junkie's good. Yeah, Until Then, which that's another good one. Until I Say So, Drag the River does a version of that, and it's really, really good.
I've heard that version.
It is great. So yeah, it's the whole record is good. Now here's something I will say. I don't think they ever released a bad record. There is definitely one that is the lowest on my list if I ranked out their whole discography. And some of that just has to do with the fact they decided to get really stinking weird. And also the production is not good. What's funny is it was produced by the same people who've produced all their other records. And I'm like, did y'all not have much time? Did the studio suck? I don't understand. But, and if you're curious, it's the album Allroy Saves. It needs to be remastered or something. Yeah, I'm
interesting. Okay. Well then, so Mass Murder, number 5. That brings us to your number 4.
Number 4, as of right now, is the 1989 album Allroy's Revenge. And this is the first with Scott Reynolds on vocals.
That's right. So, Allroy's Revenge, released in September of 1989. That was released on Cruise Records. And I did talk about Cruise Records a little bit on our Descendants episode. But this was recorded between December 1988 and January 1989 at Third Wave Recording in Torrance, California. And this was produced by Bill Stevenson. As you said, this was the first one with Scott Reynolds on vocals. So he was replacing Dave Smalley. And based on what I understand, Dave left the band because they were touring too much. And Bill wanted to tour more.
Yes. So Dave comes in, and basically, as the story goes, he gets off the plane. They go to Alfredo's to eat, which is a Mexican restaurant they loved, and they have a song about, and then immediately go to practice. And they practice non-stop. And at one point, like during recording of, I want to say it was Just Perfect, Dave had a hard time hitting a note, and he's like, I'm really hungry. Can I just get something to eat? And Bill took a Snickers and taped it on the window in the studio and said, you can eat this when you hit these notes right.
Damn.
So yeah, after all this touring, and Bill was like, okay, we're gonna start working on the next record. And Dave was like, bro, I need a break. I can't do this. Because that's the work ethic of Bill Stevenson is probably unmatched. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So yeah, really, really good. It was given 3.5 stars out of 5 by All Music, which is an online music database. And most of what I have read about it said that it was a better album than the previous album, mostly because of Scott Reynolds' vocals.
Yeah, so I can see that, and it depends on what you're referring to as the previous record. If they're referring to Allroy for President or Allroy for Prez, which was technically an EP, but the second Dave Smalley record, I think overall Allroy's Revenge is definitely a better record than that. Scott is, so of these three guys, 4 if you want to consider Milo, are definitely very different singers.
Mm-hmm.
And so Scott brings something very different and unique to the table when he's singing. Over the years, I've always gotten the impression that a lot of All fans consider Allroy's Revenge one of their best albums.
Okay. Interesting. I wouldn't say it's one of their best, but I will say that this one does hold a special place for me because it contains my absolute favorite All song. And this song is not only my favorite, like all-time favorite All song. I just got through just completed this, like one of those daily challenges things that we mentioned earlier about all-time favorite songs, like top 20 favorite songs. It was in my top 20 of all-time favorite songs. And it was this one. So that was She's My Ex.
Yeah, that is an all-time great song. It's a 5-star song. I consider it in the upper echelons of great pop rock and roll songs, up there with American Girl by Tom Petty, Surrender by Cheap Trick. I mean, these all-time perfect songs. And it's one of those that you listen to it and you're like, yeah, had they been on a bigger label and had some money, that could have been a huge hit. Should have been a huge hit. And
interestingly enough, this was Scott Reynolds' first recording session with All when they recorded this song.
That probably would have been for the single version.
Yeah. And there was something I was reading. I did grab a quote from Scott Reynolds, but this was basically quote about how meticulous Bill Stevenson was. And the quote is, "I've never been in a band where phrasing was so fucking important as this band. Carl would do some of that too, but not as bad as Bill. Bill, he'd just stop the tape and it's terrible because you're going, she'll always be, and then all of a sudden this tape stops and you're like, what?" It's like, you're flat, and he goes back. So we got all done with this thing after days on one song, and he goes, "That's awesome, we're done."
Man, yeah, that I'm pretty sure that comes from the Filmage documentary, which is if you haven't seen it, it's a tremendous documentary that gives the history of both the Descendants and All. Spends not enough time on the All end of things, though there is a bonus feature length film of essentially deleted scenes that really goes more into depth into the All years. And so this was released as a single. The B-side is a song called Crazy, which is another just perfect song, just phenomenal. Like, how is this band this good? They're so good at writing just stupid good pop songs, but they're off kilter enough that, you know, there's a reason why I think the bands that tried to be All and the Descendants in a lot of cases had more success than certainly All had, because there's just something off kilter about what All has done throughout their entire career.
Yeah. So so She's My Ex, great song, coming from a great album. And I believe that brings us to number 3.
Yes. So my top 3 are very rock solid as far as this band's concerned. And number 3 is the 1992 album Percolator. And this one might be considered a bit of a hot pick or hot take, because I know, at least over the years, I've heard people talk, and this was never considered one of their better albums. It was the first one with Scott that I ever heard, so that has some special place in my heart. But it's also just freaking great, and it shows a lot of the range of the band without being so nuts where they're like, "Hey, let's play with these jazz signatures or whatnot," which they did on the previous album when they were just going, "Hey, we can play like super crazy. Let's try it." It's like, no, please, honey, hold it back a little bit. Just because you can do that experimental jazz shit doesn't mean anyone wants to hear it. So just write your pop songs, okay? Pretend you're the Beatles, please. And not the bad Beatles, the good Beatles when they're writing pop songs. So yeah, I absolutely love this record. Yeah. And you've got basically a glam metal song on here. You've got a piano ballad. You've got just Dot, which is a ridiculously good pop song. You've got a couple of instrumentals. It's so good.
Yeah. So this one was released in May 1992, also by Cruise Records. Various recording locations. It was recorded at Chapman Recording Studio in Kansas City, Nightingale Studio in Nashville, Tennessee, and Ardent Studio in Memphis, Tennessee. This was the first album released after the band's relocation to Brookfield, and also was the last album recorded with Scott Reynolds. This album was produced by Bill Stevenson and Stephen Egerton. And here's one of the songs that came from that album.
Back in my house, there's nothing on TV. Bathroom mirror cast confusing looks from me to me. I watch you from a distance, briefly held your pose. Yes, that's just the way this story goes.
So that was Dot, which was the only song off the album to be released from this album as a single. And it actually had a music video as well.
Yeah, they did a number of music videos over the years, and more than you would think a band on Cruise Records, which was, an imprint of SST Records, which even at that point, how they were open, because Greg Ginn mismanages money like no one's business. He makes me look like, a business a genius. But it's the funny thing about this song and this album is, to borrow a phrase from Yossi Solek on Bandsplain, the vibes were bad. The band was starting to really not get along. Specifically, Scott and Carl were having problems. Bill didn't think there was any great song to use as a single, so he begrudgingly said, okay, let's do Dot. And as mentioned by that quote that you read, Bill is very particular. And the thing with Bill, though, is he is not a consistent songwriter. He's not someone who sits down and just works on songs and crafts them. They just kind of come to him. And at this point, nothing came to him. And so when he was complaining about that, Scott threw it back in his face, essentially, and said, okay, where's your song? And so they went with Dot. Now, personally, I think Dot is a phenomenal song. And it's to sit back and go, well, I don't think there are any, great singles on here. It's like,
you'll want to know, however, it is a great song, but I'm not sure why I chose that for the clip, because it's not even actually my favorite song from the album.
Ooh, what is?
My favorite song off this album is Minute.
Oh, that's a great one. That is a great one.
I completely spaced to that song when I was putting clips together. But that is a great song. And it's written by Bill Stevenson. So
yeah, Bill, when you look at the his writing, he does not bring much. I mean, he wrote Hot Plate, which is a great song, but that's basically the glam metal song, and that's not going to be a single. I love it. I think it's a ton of fun. And it shows the versatility of this band. He wrote the lyrics on Egg Timer, which is a dark, dark song. But yeah, that's not your single. I bet they've never even played that live.
Yeah.
And otherwise, he wrote Minute, and Minute is a great song.
Minute's great, yeah. But he writes, from what you described, he writes kind of the same way I do. Shit just comes to me.
Yeah, that is what I've heard. And that at this point, apparently there's material laying around for a new Descendants record that Milo and Stefan have both done a whole bunch of songs and have ready to go. And they're like, okay, Bill, Carl, can you put out some songs? Of course, I personally can you not do that and do an all record, please? Or at the very least, you are sitting on so many either A, unreleased songs, or B, songs from compilations and B-sides. Can we not get a box set of B-sides and comp tracks and
something?
Yeah, do it. And honestly, if you want it to sell, do it as a joint Descendants all release.
Yeah.
And then that way it would do better.
Yeah. All righty. That puts us at, where are we at now? We need
number two.
Number two.
So number two is the band's debut album, Allroy Says, from 1988. It is the first thing they do with Dave Smalley on vocals. And it is, in a lot of ways, this would have been the next Descendants record. And for years, I have thought in my head that I kind of consider the Descendants an all one band. And there have been arguments about whether or not they are one band or they're two bands, or which one do you like better, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. And eventually I finally settled on, no, they are two relatively distinct bands. Now, granted, when they were both active, essentially the way they would decide which songs would go on which albums, Milo's songs would go on the Descendants records, Chad's songs would go on the All records. Otherwise, they would go to this board where they had all the other songs listed, and they would pick. They go, okay, I'll take that one, and the other, okay, I'll take that one. So, I mean, they are kind of the same band, and they're not. It's a big thing. But the argument that made me decide that no, they're really not the same band was a Scott Reynolds argument, and he said that. Does anyone consider Firehose and the Minutemen the same band? And if that's a case where the only one member is different, and that is D. Boone died, and the Minutemen stopped being a band, and then Ed from Ohio comes in and starts playing music with Mike Watt and the other guy whose name I'm forgetting, and they become their own band. And then over time, they really do their own thing, while you can still hear it's like, oh yeah, this is the same foundation, but they do their own thing. That having all of this having been said, there is definitely distinctions in this record. Like, I think there's things here that probably wouldn't have happened with Milo and with the Descendants, and certainly the Allroy Saves would never have happened as a Descendants record. That is, I think Milo keeps them from getting too bonkers. So this record is so good. And it's one that it took me a while to get into, because when I first picked it up and I listened to it, the production value really hurt it, because it's a thinner sounding record because of the way it was produced. And as far as like the mixing and the way the instruments and all, they sound great together. It's just, you could tell it was produced with 5 cents and a stick of gum or something, but they did great with what they had. And there are just some absolute bangers on here and some deep cuts that I think get far too overlooked. Yeah.
So Allroy Says, released in March 1988 by Cruise Records. It was recorded in November and December 1987. At Third Wave Recording in Torrance, California. Produced by Bill Stevenson and Richard Andrews. Of course, their debut album. Backing vocals on this one were recorded by, again, Milo, but also by Des Cadena, who was, I think I got to get the second. He was the second singer for Black Flag. Wait a minute. That doesn't sound right. No, he was the third. He was the third singer for Black Flag. And then there were also some background vocals by Bob Fitzer, who was from Saccharine Trust.
Nice. There's also guys from The Last did backing vocals, guys from Chemical People, and you can really tell it is in the song All Theme and Alfredo's, that, and even in Sugar and Spice, that it feels like there's a choir. Almost. It's like this punk rock choir singing, and it's huge. It's the biggest the background vocals have ever sounded on anything this band has ever done under either name.
Yeah. So one of the songs that came from this album, we played a little earlier as a clip, the song Just Perfect, which is another favorite all song of mine. But another song that came from this album is called Hooage.
Oh God, I love that song so much.
It's so good. And the bass, Carl's bass on it is so prominent.
Yeah, he wrote the music for that one.
Yeah, he is just an amazing bass player.
I mean, let's talk about that for a second. Between Carl Alvarez, Stefan Egerton, and Bill Stevenson, are three of the most talented musicians in any band, any genre at all. It's stupid how good they are.
Agreed.
Hooage is one of those songs that I think it gets overlooked. This is an album that I think it's dominated by Just Perfect and Pretty Little Girl. And I think everything else gets overlooked because you've got Hooage is a great song. Sex in the Way is a great song. Don Quixote is one of my favorites of the band. It's a phenomenal song. So it's so much just gets missed by, I don't know, other things in the catalog that are more well known. But I think this is, it's sometimes a band's first record is their best. I don't think it's their best record, but right. I do easily think it's their second best.
Yeah, I don't put it as their best either. But that does bring us to number one.
Real quick before that, I do have a question for you. Would Allroy Says be in your top 5?
It would not, actually.
Okay. I didn't think it would, but
I would when that. So as I was thinking through this, because we did say before we went on that I actually was not planning to do my ranking, but I am going to do my ranking at the end, just as kind of like a aside. Not really talk about them too much. Just here they are. But as I was looking through them, that one probably would end up as 6.
Okay, that's fair. I'm looking forward to seeing what your ranking would be. So it's going to be good.
A little bit different than yours.
No, that never happens.
No, because there's let's talk about your number one.
Yes. My number one is the first record of theirs that I heard. And I'm sure some of that is why I think it's my favorite, but I also think it's their best. And it's the one that whenever I have handed it to people and said, listen to this, I don't think I've ever had someone come back to me and say, that sucks. And that is Breaking Things from 19.
It does not surprise me that is your favorite album at all.
Because it's fucking great.
It's really good. Released in 1993, in August 1993 by Cruise Records. Recorded in March and April of that year at Ardent Studios in Memphis, Tennessee.
You know who else recorded in Ardent Studios?
Who?
The Replacements.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Pleased to Meet Me was recorded there.
So this was the first album with Chad Price on vocals.
And there's a whole new energy to the band, especially if you listen through in order. Even if you listen to that last Descendants album, All, and then you go into Allroy Says, and I am a firm believer of, even though I think these are two different bands, if you really want to understand the scope of their entire career, you need to listen to the entire thing, because there is such a difference between Descendants All and Everything Sucks. And it's because, there's like 5 albums in between of growth that these musicians made while Milo was off being a scientist. So Breaking Things brought back an urgency and an energy and a ferociousness, which actually comes out more in the following record, but in a couple instances, it goes a little too far. I think in this record, it's as perfect as you're going to be. Now, let me say one thing. This band, whether as the Descendants or as All, they do not have a single perfect album. Every single record they have has something really fucking stupid on it.
Okay.
And in most cases, the songs that are stupid are embarrassingly stupid.
So What would you consider their stupid song on this one?
Oh, that's easy. Well, it's a strip bar. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
and horizontal's pretty dumb too, but it's catchy as all hell. Um,
Yeah.
then, but yeah, so that strip bar is the stupid song, but it's not so bad that this isn't one that you would go, okay, we need to like reconsider a lot of things about our lives and
Yeah.
the things we've done before, because there are certainly songs in the Descendants catalog that they will not touch with a 10-foot cattle prod.
So, when I was putting clips together for this episode, I was really going back and forth on a couple of different tracks on this one. One of the tracks I was going to use was the opening track, Original Me, which is just an amazing freaking song. It's just great way to open a new chapter in this band's life. But ultimately, I ended up going with this song, which was one of the singles from this album, and it is Shreen.
No, we can't say goodnight until we know what's right, and we can't face the day unless we find a way, and we can't solve it all if we never see the fun. Today I heard the song that was playing when I first kissed you. I woke up next to someone who wasn't you. What do we do? What do you think we should do? Shreen? What do you think about me and you? Shreen? What do you think we should do? Shreen?
Yeah,
God, I love that song.
it is a great song.
So
I really like Original Me too. It's just
okay. So put a pin on Original Me for a second. So I think that had Breaking Things been their major label debut, because this was their last album with Cruise Records. Their next album comes out on Interscope Records. But had this been the major label debut, I think this would have been far more commercially successful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, because as great as $1 Million is for a song, it's no Shreen. Had Shreen gotten the push, had they been performing that on the late night talk shows, it would have done so much better. Original Me, it's a Chad Price song. It was one he had actually around for a long time, and he brought it to the band, and they loved it. And obviously so much that it's the first song on the record. So it's you talk about a thesis statement, just opening arguments kind of thing. Interestingly, at one point a number of years ago, I did an email interview with Scott Reynolds, and I asked him if there were any songs that All had done or any of their albums that he after he heard it, he thought to himself, man, I really wish I'd been part of that. And he said no, but he did wish he'd sung Original Me.
Yeah, I can't imagine him singing that song.
I can't either. It's he and Chad Price have such different vocal styles. And I mean, I think he could do it, and I think he could do it really well. But I don't know, it's so weird. Like, I've heard Chad sing Scott songs, and he's a dynamic enough vocalist that he pulls them off. He does make them his own, but it's not such a drastic change that you're like, oh, what's going on? So I would love to hear Scott sing Original Me. In fact, I think it would be super fun if they got all of the singers, including Milo, together, and they did a record where they recorded a song that someone else originally sang and recorded from the catalog. I think that would be just really fun.
So did you say that Breaking Things was the first album you heard from them?
It is.
Okay.
Yes.
So it wasn't the first all record I heard, but it was the first one that I bought.
Yeah, it was the first one I bought, first one I heard. I bought it without, all I knew was it was the guys from the Descendants' new project. Or even at that point, it wasn't new.
Yeah.
But I picked it up and I put it in, and it was just a eureka. Holy shit, what is this? Why aren't more people talking about this? This is incredible.
Oh. So there you have it. There are the 5 favorite albums of all, as ranked by my friend Dave Brown, of 1 to 5 songs. And I'm going to go ahead and just real quick tell you about how I rank my top 5. So a couple of different, some of them are the same. Some of my top 5 were in your top 5, just in different spots. But also there are some that were not in your top 5. My number 5 is Allroy Saves from 1990.
Fascinating.
And there were just a lot of good songs on this album that I really resonated, and they really kind of just stuck with me. Songs like Educated Idiot, Just Like Them, Simple Things, just love those songs.
Those are great songs, no denying.
Yeah. Number 4 is one of them that was in your and actually was your number 4, and that was Allroy's Revenge. So that was same rank as on yours. My number 3 is in your top 5, and it is Breaking Things. Great album. So 3 and 2 could be interchangeable, but at this specific moment in the universe, they just has a slight edge. And this one was not at all on your ranking, and probably wouldn't even be 6 or 7 if I had to take a guess. But just something about the album I really love, and that's Pummel.
See, I would have thought that was your number 1.
It came close. It came close. But no, Pummel, I just, for some reason, I just really love that album. Now, you were mentioning some crappy songs on each album. There are a couple of crappy songs on here. I am not a huge fan of the song Uncle Critic.
Yeah, no, that, and also that's one that aged very poorly.
Yeah, I do not like that song at all. Aside from that, I love almost every song on this album. Love this album.
So I also love most of the songs on this record. Uncle Critic, I could do without. Stalker, I really am not a fan of.
Yeah. That one's kind of eh.
Yeah. Hetero is, even though I know it was, they were doing like a guilty of being white type of thing.
Yeah.
It just, this is a case where Chad's vocals are too gruff and too, he sounds too angry for you to go realize it. Oh, this is kind of a joke.
Okay.
You hear it and you're like, oh shit. Yeah. And I mean, even when I heard it in like 95, I was like, oh damn. Now what I didn't realize is that Away She Went was a bonus track on the Japanese release. That is a fucking great song.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my God. Yeah. So you replace Hetero with Away She Went, Stalker, Uncle Critic, just take those off, throw Away She Went in there. And yeah, I'm definitely, this record changes completely in my eyes.
So this one is pretty close to being my favorite all record, but my favorite all record was on your list, just completely polar opposite of your ranking, and that's Mass Murder.
I can see that.
Just so many freaking good songs on that album. I'm looking through the song list now, and I'm not sure which one I would consider the stinker. Looking at the song list, nothing really
this is
me as this song sucks.
Well, so there's a difference between saying a song sucks and saying a song is stupid. Honey Peeps is a stupid song.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Okay, it's a good song. It's catchy. It's one you probably don't play in 2024, but it's
okay.
It's real dumb.
Okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you that one. Okay, Honey Peeps would be that one. I really love that song.
Oh no, I mean, God, it's so catchy.
Yeah.
And I will say, so the one that I probably, if I'm being depending on my mood, I would say I would replace Mass Nerder with Problematic, because even though these are the rankings of what I think are my favorite records from the band, I think what you would describe as their best albums are Breaking Things, Allroy's Revenge, and Problematic. I think they were starting something new with Problematic. And then Bill Stevenson's health went to shit, and Chad got busy doing Drag the River.
Yeah. And
then the music market went to hell, and it's not like they were making a ton on album sales anyway. So it's just a shame, because I would love to have known what they would have done after Problematic. And I will say, in a lot of ways, when you listen to Problematic and then you turn around and you listen to the Descendants American EP and the Cool to Be You album, and I think you hear some of where they would have gone as all. And again, that
makes sense.
Yeah, because to me, I get so frustrated with people who love the Descendants and don't know that all exists. I'm like, you are missing half of the picture. You get so much more out of both bands, I think, if you know both of their discographies, because all of it. It's all in conversation with each other, and I don't get it. But that's why you can fill Kane's Ballroom with 2,000 people to see the Descendants, and you get only 250 people to see all.
Yeah.
Which also, the All show was on a Sunday night, so that didn't help things.
Sure. All right. Well, that wraps up another episode of Pure Rank. Dave, thanks for coming on the show and giving me your rankings of the band All. It's good to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see what you do next with the show. I've enjoyed the episode so far, so keep up the good work.
Yeah, I've got the next one more or less written. Not sure when I'm going to record it, but it will probably be sooner than the what's the word I'm looking for? The gap between 2 and 3.
Okay, good. And
the gap between 3 and 4 is going to be a lot smaller than the gap between 2 and 3.
Excellent. And you need to come on to my show, as we've been threatening to do for a while. Come on, talk some Bad Religion.
Definitely. So make sure you catch One Band 5 Songs, which I'll have the link in the show description. And for any nerds out there, I have another podcast called Rebel Rock Radio, where it's basically advertised as a Star Wars podcast that talks about more than just Star Wars. But the tagline actually is something that you kind of helped put together. The tagline for the show is sweet jams and conversations about a galaxy far, far away and beyond.
Oh yeah, I did help with that.
Because so in addition to talking about random nerd junk, I also play music on it from bands that you're generally probably never heard of. So catch that live on YouTube on Tuesdays. And thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Rank, and hope you check us out next time.